From the Oklahoman Newsroom, it's time for the Red Zone, our weekly extended look at Oklahoma football. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio with fellow columnist Barry Trammell, OU beat writer Ryan Aber. Guys, the season is over, but still so much to discuss, and we got to start with Kyler Murray, the guy that we don't really know what his future is going to hold, Ryan, and we get a report on Wednesday evening from Susan Slusser, who covers the Oakland A's for the San Francisco Chronicle, best on that beat, saying that the A's are expecting Kyler Murray to declare himself for the NFL draft. What does this do for our understanding of what may happen with Kyler Murray?
Well, all it does is eliminate the third option, which was the least likely of all the options, that Kyler Murray would return and try to do baseball and football for one more year. This makes it strictly between professional baseball and professional football. The Oakland A's start spring training in mid-February. I think their report date for position players is February 15th, so not a whole lot of extra time for Kyler to make that decision, but at least narrows down his choices a little bit.
What if he is drafted, doesn't like where he's drafted? Could college football still be an option, Barry?
If he doesn't like where he's drafted in the NFL?
Yeah.
No, if you declare.
Once he's done, he's done.
He's done.
Yeah.
It's an archaic system. I've always said college football, the NCAA ought to say, you're still eligible, even if you go even if you're drafted in the NFL, as long as you don't sign, then we would have an interesting situation. But no, if you declare, you're gone. So what would be the most interesting is, it comes down to the NFL or the A's if he does what we expect him to do. So, and that's a decision he's going to have to make well before the NFL draft, because he doesn't have to, but he's going to go to the spring training with the A's.
Big league spring training, as Susan also reported yesterday.
Right. So, and we're talking about January, February, March for NFL prospects. That's when they all go to the combines. That's when they do all their training with private tutors and all kinds of things. So it's a wild landscape for Kyler Murray. No telling what he'll do, but he's clearly, to me, sort of caught and doesn't know what to do between two things he really likes to do and two things he's really good at.
Although, Jenny, related to your question, what you can do in the NFL is if you don't sign, you go right back into the draft pool for the next year. So that would be a possibility. If he doesn't like where he's picked or who he's picked by, he's got that in his back pocket. I mean, we've seen other players sort of play those cards. I think John Elway.
Right.
And
that's
some others.
why he'll be a little bit of toxic to NFL teams for two reasons. One is he could go play baseball, and two, if he does go play baseball and doesn't sign with you, you've wasted a draft pick. So that means,
which is where the A's are on the baseball side.
But the better news for the A's is losing a first-round draft pick in the NFL is cataclysmic.
Right.
Baseball teams survive it to some degree.
There's just so many moving parts, guys, and we knew there was going to be a lot of uncertainty. For me, I really felt like him coming back to OU was maybe the least likely of the scenarios, with the money that the A's had already promised him.
Though, if he would have come back to OU, my thought was coming back to OU wouldn't cost him the A's money. It would be at the expense of the NFL, that he could leave. Lincoln Riley could give him his blessing to be gone until just before the season comes. And then when the season comes, he would come back and be the quarterback. Yeah. Not the ideal situation, but at the same time, when you're Lincoln Riley and you've got the quarterback situation that they face right now, I think Lincoln Riley would be open to that. Now, it appears like it's not going to happen, but I don't think coming back would be at the cost of the A's money.
The other thing about that scenario is Kyler Murray would have to do some things to retain eligibility in terms of class. He couldn't
It's not a ton. It's only 6 hours per semester, I believe, to have to do that. And we've seen basketball players take classes online.
Right.
So I think that would be
6
doable.
in the spring, 6 in the summer.
Right. Yeah.
So he'd have to be on buses playing minor league ball, taking online classes. Not to say it couldn't be done.
You got to do something while you're on the buses. Get yourself a good battery on these laptops, a nice little hotspot, and you're set.
I think you can afford a good hotspot plan for $4.7 million.
Yeah.
All right, guys, lastly on Kyler Murray, if indeed it sounds like right now the OU option is the least likely scenario that's going to play out, where does this leave Oklahoma in terms of quarterbacking? what we heard was that Kyler Murray's locked in this big battle with Austin Kendall before the season started, so close. They were right down to the end before deciding. Is this Austin Kendall's job, Barry, or are there too many other variables out there right now that might bring another guy into the fold?
Well, when I think about the Kyler Murray and Austin Kendall battle, I think of the old Frankie Valli song, "So Near and Yet So Far Away." There was a little bit of smoke coming from Kyler Murray. Odds are, not Kyler Murray, Lincoln Riley. Odds are that they weren't all that close. We've got a situation if Austin Kendall is in the Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray family of quarterback quality. So there's rumblings that Kendall might transfer. He's graduated. He could go play immediately somewhere.
If 2 years somewhere else.
Yeah, have 2 years. So, who knows what it's going to look like. Is Lincoln in the market for a graduate transfer to come in? Are they looking for just a bridge quarterback until Spencer Rattler, the hot shot from Arizona, comes in June? Bunch of questions going on if the Sooners lose Kyler Murray, which they almost surely will.
It sounds like there are transfers out there, Ryan, but the question of, are they good enough to play Lincoln Riley's offense? Jalen Hurts is a guy that's out there, but he got demoted because he couldn't throw it well enough. Hey, Lincoln Riley wants to throw it a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So I question whether Jalen Hurts would be a good fit at Oklahoma for that reason. I mean, my thought is Spencer Rattler isn't going to arrive early. He's not going to be here for the spring. He's going to be here in June, like Barry mentioned. With the schedule that they have, they start against, they've had a Houston team that's in transition right now, going to Dana Holgorsen. They've got an FCS team. They've got UCLA. Their first two Big 12 games next year are Kansas and Texas Tech. So you've got some time to work into some things. Now, UCLA figures to be a whole lot better. How much better is the question, but there's some time there to build up. So maybe if you convince Austin Kendall to hang around, maybe you probably start with him or Tanner Mordecai if he's the guy. That gives Spencer Rattler some time. And as we saw with Clemson this year, with their quarterback situation when Trevor Lawrence overtook Kelly Bryant early in the season, maybe that could be something that plays out for the Sooners next year. It's been a while since we've had midseason quarterback changes at Oklahoma, but I think next year it's at least a possibility.
Any chance he's got hair like Trevor Lawrence?
I
Surely
don't
not.
think so. I wasn't there live, but watched Spencer Rattler on TV last week at the no longer the U.S. Army All-American game, just the All-American Bowl, and he did not have the glorious hair that Trevor Lawrence does.
Unfortunate, but they can't all have hair like that. All right, before we talk a little bit about defensive coaching staff and those changes, real quick, some departures, not only Kyler Murray, you got some other guys declaring for the draft, including Bobby Evans. That news came out on Wednesday. Some other offensive linemen, obviously Hollywood Brown a while ago, but talking about offense and transition, Ryan, it's not just quarterback that you're going to see new faces. This is going to be an offense with some new parts out there next year. Yeah,
really all the way around. Outside of running back, where you expect Kennedy Brooks and Trey Sermon to be the guys there, and of course tight end where Grant Calcaterra will be back. There's a lot of changes, especially on the offensive line, but there's no reason to doubt that Bill Bedenbaugh will rebuild that offensive line. They probably won't be as good as they were this year when they won the Joe Moore Award, but they feel really good about some of those guys who backed up the guards and tackles this year, Tyrese Robinson, Adrian Ely, guys like that. So they feel like they've got some depth there. The one question to me is the guy who is back, Creed Humphrey at center, who backs him up, because there's not a whole lot of depth there if something were to happen to Creed Humphrey. EJ and Doma Ogar from Allen might be the number 2 center next year.
Barry, we knew that several of these guys were likely to go. I mean, when the season ends and you see that offensive line had been so good, you expect guys like Cody Ford to potentially go, Bobby Evans to go, but yet they've pretty much all gone. I mean, there's really not guys that have said no to the NFL at this point. Not to say that that's worrisome to Lincoln Riley, but it definitely changes the urgency of what needs to be done in the spring for sure.
Yeah, I know you knew this was coming. I mean, they had to know. I mean, it's when a guy stays, it's man bites dog. It's just become standard. These guys go when they have the chance. And I think Bill Bedenbaugh and Lincoln Riley and whoever else were preparing to totally revamp this offensive line. So they got the anchor and Creed Humphreys to build around, and that's center's the most important job on that line. So they won't be as good. No way they can be with 4 guys moving on, most of them to the NFL. But I don't expect it to be the weak link of the football team next year. I think they're going to be okay on the offensive line, probably pretty good, maybe really good, just not the best in the nation.
Speaking of weak links, what about the Oklahoma defense, guys? We know Alex Grinch. How about that for a segue?
Let's go back talking about Kyler Murray.
We know Alex Grinch is the new defensive coordinator, Ryan. What else are we hearing about potential additions to the staff? We know, obviously, Tim Kish is gone, retiring after a very long career in college football. But there was rumblings of one of the Odoms possibly coming to coach linebackers. Sounds like that isn't happening. What do we know about that job and any of the other assistants on the defensive side?
Well, first of all, about that job, I think the Cliff Kingsbury hire at the Arizona Cardinals might affect this as well, because one of the names being thrown out after Odom was Zach Spavital, who is now the defensive coordinator down at Texas Tech under his brother Jake Spavital. Zach Spavital and Jake, for that matter, have deep Oklahoma ties, being Tulsa kids. But with Cliff Kingsbury getting hired at Arizona, both those guys are in play for assistant coach jobs there. So that will be interesting to watch. Outside of Tim Kish leaving, nothing set in stone. Still be surprised if Ruffin McNeil was back in an on-field coaching capacity. I think that he's more likely to move on to like an analyst type role, but they want him around. And then Kerry Cooks is a big question, because Alex Grinch is a secondary guy, and Kerry Cooks being the secondary coach, that's an embattled group for the Sooners, so wouldn't be surprised to see a change there either.
Barry, what's your best guess on how many new defensive assistants? I mean, you already know defensive coordinator, linebacker. How many more are new coaches come the fall?
I'm going to guess they're all gone except Thibodeau, Calvin
Okay.
Thibodeau. I mean, I think Ruffin McNeil sort of transforms into an off-field role, and I would assume that Kerry Cooks would be replaced. Just no development from the secondary, the defensive backs. Apparently a good recruiter, but those guys just don't get better. So I think you're going to see a virtually whitewash of the OU defensive staff, with the exception of Calvin Thibodeau.
All right, guys, lots left to be determined. We'll see if the Kyler Murray declaration for the NFL comes to pass in the next couple of days. Then we'll have that to talk about next week and what it means for the Sooners moving forward. So be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoma.